Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we're talking about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Happy. So a lot of interesting things went down in this episode. For one, we finally got like a little bit of a peek into Nick's past. And it kind of seems like basically this episode kind of sets up the fact is that Nick was actually a good cop. It's something kind of interesting that Meredith kind of brings up. She's like, I'm supposed to be the new plucky, still having faith in humanity cop, and you're supposed to be the cynic, but it seems like the roles are reversed. So it seems like Nick was at one point in time like the fact is like no, there's good, there's looking out for people, because it seems like basically what Nick's problem was is the fact is that he cared too much in a city that you shouldn't, because there's so much crap, there's so much darkness, there's so much bad stuff there that it seems like eventually everything altogether just kind of finally whittled him down, especially this whole thing within this episode that dealt with that lawyer, which I'm wondering, like, I don't think they really expressed who that lawyer represented. I don't know. I get the feeling like that lawyer would end up representing someone that's important to the story. I mean, maybe it's just that's a whole plot thread in its own, but I feel like that's got to connect back to the main plot in the sense of like maybe that lawyer represented Blue in the past or something like that. If that was because like Nick wouldn't hold everything that lawyer did to his wife and his baby, which hands down, probably one of the most disturbing things that's ever popped up on TV. It almost makes you go, wow, this is actually on Sci-Fi? That seems like something that would happen maybe on like an HBO or maybe a Cinemax, maybe. Not Sci-Fi, but nevertheless. I guess it's okay because it's just like, it's implied. It's not necessarily been like, oh, that happened, it happened, So... But I guess everything that he did would be on the lawyer. It wouldn't necessarily be on the person that lawyer was representing. But I get the feeling like it's got to be someone like Blue. Not unless this person was representing like the previous Don that died or whatever the case may be. But it seems like everything, all that just kind of finally just wore him down. It just, because it seems like the city... we still haven't gotten a look, but just the way it seems like the city was just crap. And to be fair, maybe it's not even just the city, maybe it's just the job in itself. That the fact is, the city wasn't 100% just messed up, which I have to bounce back and forth because it's like, well, the way things work now, the way the cops are pretty much all kind of working for Blue, even Meredith, begs the question of like, like what led to everything kind of falling apart the way it is, or was this always the way it was, and just, people like Nick who are optimistic were just holding on to some hope until it finally died out, turning him into the person that we see now, because he was a man that cared too much and basically it all whittled him down. And I guess you could argue that the way he is now is a defense mechanism to protect himself from like caring too much again. And but we do see that now happening with him joining up with Happy, trying to help with Haley and everything. Like, obviously he's still being his very self-destructive self, but the fact is he's still taking those steps forward, trying to do the right thing. So I think that's also going to be set up to kind of be like, oh, like obviously the heroes rise back to the top. It's not going to be an easy one. It's going to be a very steep climb, but I think at the same time there's going to be things that kind of knock him down to be like, no, go back to being the piece of crap, Nick Sachs that you've been, over the course of this, time. So I'm curious, is that lawyer situation the first time Nick's ever crossed that line too? Like, was that whole situation not just showing you who Nick would eventually be? Well, coinciding with the fact is of him not caring as much, but also showing you that he was willing to cross whatever line if it meant kind of going about things the way it needed to be handled. Because what's interesting about the whole situation is we kind of found out about the whole Amanda situation too, of like how she found out she was pregnant. It was around, obviously Nick and Meredith had their own thing going on. Maybe the entire, like, we still don't know, because by the time we cut to that, it's already like happening. And then Amanda finds out she's pregnant and she never got to tell Nick because it was just kind of bad timing all around, because it's like, well, Nick had just had that experience, with the whole lawyer situation, so he wasn't in the mindset to really think of like, happy to have a child, because it's like seeing how nasty and disgusting the world is. It's like, we can't bring a child into that, a wonderful child into this wonderful world, and then even throwing out like, the child will be like me, and I guess seeing all the bad stuff that he's done. So maybe that whole thing with the lawyer and beating the crap out of him like he did, maybe that wasn't the first bad thing Nick's ever done, but maybe it was just things stacked upon each other. So, and what's kind of interesting about that whole situation is that, I mean, for one, I think you can see around this time that Amanda kind of has thoughts about like, they're having that Meredith and Nick are like having something, because he bites an apple and then like Meredith bites off the same apple and Amanda sees it. But I don't think she really jumps to that conclusion, because it's like, oh, they don't communicate as well. So, but I guess it's just kind of like this is my marriage, maybe in Amanda's eyes it's like, maybe she was kind of hoping that, she could kind of get Nick to open up. Maybe being a father would kind of brighten his world again, make him be the man that, she most likely fell in love with before, and not this man that's before her that doesn't really talk. And it's something she ends up kind of bringing up to Meredith later on. I thought was kind of interesting. The fact is that Nick didn't talk, because basically she's in the same boat as Amanda. Like, Nick doesn't talk to her either. It seems like the whole Meredith situation, it seems like it's more like a feeling an empty void inside of him. Like, whether there was intimacy between them, like obviously there was sex, but I mean beyond that, like whether it was like he actually loved her, like maybe that's kind of what kind of created a bigger divide between them. It's like maybe she had feelings for him. She wanted things to be more. It's like she didn't want to just be kind of like his sex buddy. It's like, no, like she probably wanted something more, and Amanda assumed it was more, but it's like, no, it turns out to be, it was just kind of empty. Like I said, just Nick was just slowly, he was basically getting chipped away at slowly over time, and he just needed something to fill the void, which is kind of sad. So, I mean, granted, when the grand scheme of things, we still don't know what it is that finally pushed everything overboard for Nick to kind of lead him to where he is now. Whether it was necessarily this lawyer situation, we'll kind of have to wait, but that might potentially be the right thing. Maybe we end up finding out the person that the lawyer is representing takes action against him. But then it's like, what role would Meredith play in it? Like, because it's like, oh, you ruined his career. So I feel like it would have something to do with that. But Meredith was sitting there the entire time, smoking, just kind of like, it's not like she's trying to stop him or whatever. So I feel like it wasn't necessarily that situation. But once again, maybe it's kind of a domino effect that might have been one of the starting points that eventually led to his demise, since they kind of put such an emphasis on him. And I might have brought this up last episode, but it does beg up the question too, at what point in time did Meredith start working for Blue? Like, was she working for Blue this entire time between her and Nick's partnership? Like I said, what were the circumstances around like him being taken down and her, quote unquote, ruining Nick's career? Maybe like she kind of got caught up with Blue around the time her mom got sick, which begs the question, was her mom sick at this point in time, or just was it later on? Did she get too far behind? And now, she ended up having to get money from Blue to deal with her mom's medical needs and stuff like that. We just kind of have to wait to see about the whole situation. But obviously a big part in this episode, as I brought up, obviously we got like Meredith and Amanda working together. Odd couple in the sense of like, it's interesting to see, like I didn't expect them to work together, but Meredith kind of brought up a good point of like, she's the only person that cares. And I'm like, I was like, okay, so maybe Meredith is doing this because she is trying to make up for the past, for everything kind of falling out the way it did. But ultimately it's like, no, everything you're doing is for selfish reasons, because you're going to use Amanda to get to Nick. So whether it's like, oh, she's just going to use Amanda, who will eventually have to track down Nick to help with this whole situation. So like, that's an easier way. Or it's like, oh, they get Haley and then, well, I feel like it has to be the former, because I feel like, because it's not like Sax knew. Like, Meredith probably figures like, oh, Nick probably doesn't know that about the whole Haley situation. So I feel like the whole Haley situation wouldn't be like, oh, get Haley, rescue her from whatever situation, and then draw in Nick. I think it's going to be like pushing Amanda to go to Nick for help, turning to the one person she wouldn't even dream to. I mean, to be fair, she turned to Meredith. That's just because she was literally out of options. And I think even more so than Meredith, I don't think she'd ever cross paths with Nick unless she absolutely needed to. So we'll just kind of have to wait and see on that front. But like I said, it's a little sad. I was hoping that she was trying to make things kind of work out. There was kind of this line from her in this episode that was basically like, oh, I'm a mom. And Amanda's like, no, you're not a mom. If you were a mom, I know. And she's like, well, you're right. Like, I thought that was her just trying to mess with her. But part of me was like, maybe there's something to that. Like, maybe in the past, Meredith had a child, she had to give up for adoption or, other circumstances. Maybe she actually is a mom. Maybe she never had an opportunity to be a mom, Like I said, for said reason of adoption or other options in that situation. So, I don't know. It just seemed like, I don't know, maybe she would, because obviously they're going back and forth saying stuff just to kind of get underneath each other's skin. It's like, obviously it's like two people who hate each other the most, just kind of like forced to kind of work together. So it's kind of interesting when we ended up finding out about that family this episode. It's like, oh, our child was taken, but then like Amanda ended up finding her being locked away. So it's like, I guess in this particular situation, it was supposed to show you that, I guess it kind of goes along with the whole aspect of like, not everyone in this city is a good person. And it kind of alludes to like, and it kind of made Amanda go, oh, so this is the type of stuff that Nick saw that he never really talked about, so she kind of got to see probably a much darker side to the city that she never really knew existed, that probably very few people know existed. Some people might know it exists and just don't care, or some just, maybe like Blue, who take advantage of that darkness, whatever the case may be. But an interesting development in this episode is the fact is that Nick finally learns more about the Santa Claus, in the sense of the fact is that he is actually the son of a different Santa. Like, basically, he went to Mrs. Claus at that strip club, the North Pole. Basically, she makes it seem like basically there was a Santa in the past who was a little too friendly with kids, and basically it ended with him being taken. Like, they were like, oh, maybe he hung himself, but it's like, no, the elves knew what he was doing, and so they killed him. And it seems like Mrs. Claus was one of said elves that did that whole situation, but it turns out that particular guy had a kid. So it's like, okay, at that moment I was like, okay, so he's human, right? But it's like, no, but he did all of that stuff, especially later on when he's tossing Nick around like it's nothing. It's like, so he has superhuman strength, but the whole like changing his voice and everything. So I'm like, what does that mean? Did he die and become a demon, indeed a demon possess him, the whole situation? Because I was like, I thought he wanted the kids for food purposes, but now it's like, well, maybe the whole kids thing is just some like thing he inherited from his dad. Like, maybe it's kind of like we're dealing with a half human, half demon hybrid situation, that one of his parents was a demon. Because apparently he was locked up in like a psychiatric facility is where he was at one point in time, but now he's out and everything. So it's like, I don't know. We're still in the stages like he is a monster, but we don't know like quite exactly like whether he's something specific, or like I said, is he like, we do know that, like I said, monsters exist in this world. So it's like, maybe, like I said, maybe he's all monster. Maybe he's only a fraction of it. There's always the possibility that maybe he's an imaginary friend. Maybe he's that particular, the son's imaginary friend manifested in this shape or form or something like that. I highly doubt it, but I figured I might as well throw it out as a possibility. But something that crossed my mind, and it's something that comes up in this episode, and like why he's going out of his way to take care of Nick. It's like, I feel like you send out all these postcards to all these different families, so it's like it's meant to taunt them. So it's like, why would you bother going after Nick? And I think it's because, well, in his mind, Haley challenged him by being like, oh, my dad's coming to rescue you. He's like, oh, if that's the case, I think more so, this combination of that, but I think it's more so than anything is to break Haley's belief. I think the fact is that she has such strong belief in her dad coming to save her, it's giving her hope, and I think the whole point is to break her hope. I guess, makes whatever it is he wants from them more so. Maybe he wants them kind of drowning in despair. Maybe he feeds off of that or something, because he ends up making Haley realize it's like, oh, the person you've been talking to, the only friend you have in this place, you're kind of getting all buddy with it. And he ends up doing the voice to be like, it's me. And he even gets her to eat this cake that kind of, makes her see things. Because she ended up eating the cake at that point, because it's like, because she probably had hope that, like, oh, the one person she could trust in this place, and it turns out it's the Santa Claus dude. And on top of that, it's like she told him all this stuff about her dad. So I think that just kind of made her go, oh crap, maybe she thought if she did what he asked her of her, maybe it meant that he wouldn't hurt her dad or something like that. But there's also this interesting thing of how he found out what Nick looks like, because after he gave her the cake, it seemed like he went inside of her head. Now the question is it a situation of, even if like Haley doesn't actively think about it, he can just jump into her head? And because it seemed like he was in the memory itself of when she was at the computer looking at her dad's face, it's like he was there in that memory. Or did the whole situation and the discussion that they had, did he bring that memory to the forefront, that he's able to just read her mind, but it was just represented as if he's right there? Like, I'm just curious how that whole situation works. Is it something that he needs the cake to do, or what? Once again, like, what is this whole situation like? Because it's like, is that some kind of like magic to it? The whole like doing what he did get inside, or is that just a special ability he has? Like, I'm curious like how that whole thing works. Because part of me was wondering, is this whole situation supposed to just be about revenge? Is this some like demonic monster need to what he's doing, the whole like locking kids in boxes and stuff like that? Or is this like revenge against the city because of what happened to his dad, And what's also interesting is that it turns out that he can actually see Happy too, because he's like, oh, I can see you at the end of the episode. So, which could potentially add weight, validity to the statement I made earlier about him potentially actually being an imaginary friend himself. But like, I get the feeling like it's unlikely. Maybe it's just because it's like, well, Happy isn't like imaginary friends are one side of the supernatural spectrum, and then like demons are another side, that basically because they kind of exist in that same spectrum, they can recognize each other. The Saint is able to see Happy, so because no one else besides Haley and Nick, which we still don't know why Nick can, even if that is her dad, is like, well, why hasn't Amanda been able to see Happy before now too? So if it's a family thing, it's like maybe we're going to find out some craziness that Nick has always been like, because maybe it has something to do with who his character was. You know what? Now that I think about it, the reason why it most likely is because the one person in the world that Haley believes in more than, just as much as, if not more than Happy, is her dad. Because, and then they brought it up last episode, she has this like image of who her dad is, that he's some great hero or something like that. So that's why Happy is able to, because all of this is channeled by Haley's beliefs. So I was like, and like that's the immediately thought. Maybe they've kind of basically been subtly saying that the entire time, but like it just took till now for me to kind of recognize like that has to be the reason why. Maybe there's something else to it, but that's immediately my current like hypothesis about that whole situation. So, but either way, I'm very interested to see what goes down in the next episode with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about in this episode. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.